joining us, I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm Alex, the divorce planner. I help people prepare in advance of divorce so they save time and money, understand their financial realities, move forward with clarity, intention, and all of their documents organized. I am so thrilled to be able to bring you conversations I have with meaningful professionals that help you get through this process, maybe introduce you to some services or people you might be in need of. And today's guest is one of those people. So I wrote a little something, Kim, that I just kind of want to tee up and read because I'm a highly organized person. I'm not sure if you've got that from the divorce planner, but bear with me.
I love that.
So there are so many critical points you face when you navigate life during and after divorce. Transitioning from an us to a we isn't without a lot of bumps in the road, and giving yourself the tools and support to make that journey as easy as possible is really the best gift that you can give yourself. So my In Conversation with series is packed with meaningful information from some of the top professionals in the field, including today's guest, relationship coach Kim Polinder. Kim's posts on Instagram and TikTok are always packed with practical tips and action items, and they run the gamut from relationship dynamics, attachment styles, how to deal with high conflict situations, and more. She really specializes in working with individuals, couples, and I know you have a group program as well, and I am so happy that you are joining us here today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I just kind of want to dive into it, and for anybody who's joined us, if you have a question about divorce, healing, kind of going through shame, grief, whatever it is, please drop it in. I'm just going to ask him a few questions, but happy to get to anybody's as we have this conversation. So I think first and foremost, when people are going through a big life transition, like a separation or a divorce, look, there's a huge emotional component to it, right? So there's the business side of it, and then there's the emotional side. And I know a lot of your clients have gone through this. Maybe they're going through it right now. My big question is really, how does a relationship coach work with couples who are like at a crossroads in their marriage and contemplating divorce?
Yeah, great question. I get couples who are at every stage of the relationship, whether it's premarital, whether it's in the midst of it, and then considering divorce, considering a breakup. And so wherever stage you are, the first thing I recommend to look at is those resentments. So when you have the big fights, there's always going to be something that gets brought in, to the fight about, well, this just reminds me of last year at the wedding, same thing. And so look at those big fights, the instances that always get brought up. And those are the places to focus on as far as resentments, because resentments will then, if you follow the breadcrumbs, they'll take you back to what your deepest patterns are, deepest triggers, deepest upsets, and what you're seeking ultimately from a partner. So resentments can't go unprocessed. It's uncomfortable. It's, no one wants to be talking about resentments all 24/7, but you really need to address them because they will take down a relationship over time if not addressed.
You are saying something that I think is such a prevalent issue with couples that are at a crossroads, and specifically that idea of kind of dealing with the triggers of the conversation, unresolved issues. And it kind of sometimes I feel like when people aren't really communicating well, it feels like you're going in this endless loop, right? You're never getting to the point. One person is just saying something, the other person isn't listening, they're just waiting to say their thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard you speak a little bit about that on social media, and I love that you are always kind of getting right to the heart of these really human kind of not mistakes necessarily, but we're not always equipped to be able to guide ourselves through those conversations, especially when you're stuck in a pattern and you're not listening to each other.
For sure. And for people who've never been in therapy or never at least been in couples therapy, why not try it? Because it always helps to get a neutral third party into the room who's been trained to hear certain things, look for certain things, help facilitate and translate conversations. Because inevitably what happens is what you just said, where you have an argument, you're talking about the laundry, household chores. Now it becomes timeliness. Now it becomes you never planned date nights. Then it becomes, oh, the resentment towards your parents. And well, my family, my family's this or that. So the issue becomes clouded, and pretty soon you're arguing about different things. Even if you take one argument, let's take one of those items, like the laundry. where one person is complaining about the laundry not getting help, like, hey, would you like to help me? And it starts to escalate. And then the other person eventually starts arguing about, I really don't appreciate the tone that you're
Mm.
talking to me with. You don't appreciate all the work stress that I have at the office and these projects. And now you're no longer talking about the laundry and house chores. You're talking about feeling unappreciated. Now you're starting to get into those deeper triggers and deeper wounds. So,
It's everything you're saying is resonating. It's like it's hard, and it's never about then really what the issue is. It's like you're talking about all these superficial things on top of it rather than taking accountability for your own feelings and saying, I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling like we're not in sync. I'm feeling I'm not being, as opposed to getting to that, which is, look, it's really common. It happens.
yeah.
I love what you're saying. For everybody who's just joined us, we are going to be taking your questions, so bear with me. I just have a couple of things I'm going to ask him, and I will absolutely get to it because I saw something get dropped in. What are a few of the most common mistakes you find clients that you're counseling who are going through a separation or a divorce make?
Yeah. You know, I'm basing this off of people that I counseled during a divorce and
Mhm.
also people years later after the divorce, the regrets that they have,
Ooh,
and also just people that I've known and talking to. So when it comes to regrets, the number one regret is how they involve the children.
mhm.
Now, um, ideally, you want to play the long game with
Yeah.
kids, where let's say you have a spouse who's just bad mouthing you all the time. It takes an immense amount of self-control not to just jump into that gutter, right? But with kids, they pay attention to everything, and you really want to play the long game. If you're the good parent, they may be resentful towards you. Even the other parent might have been the one who left the home, and then your kids live with you full time
Mhm.
even, and it's
Mhm.
like, why are you turning on me? I'm the one who's here. They're just processing their resentment. They're going to turn against you, even if you left for good reasons. Maybe it was unhealthy, abusive. They're still going to say, why'd you abandon us? And you just have to take it on the chin and say, and empathize with them and play that long game, be supportive, be empathetic. Like, yes, I did abandon you. When they get to an age where you can have a real conversation about, was it really abandonment? Here's the actual circumstances.
Mhm.
This will all play into the long game. Just put in the time with your kids and hold off until they get to an age where they can actually process this, and it'll pay off in the long term.
Oh, I think that's absolutely spot on. And something I'm always talking to clients about when I'm prepping with them in advance of divorce who have children is your separation and your divorce, that's grown up stuff, right? Kids, they didn't make the choice. They're really looking to you to set a tone moving forward. And if you are that parent, look, if you are both in a 50-50 situation, that's great. And if you're both very hands on, fabulous. But kids are kids. This is grown up stuff. Leave that stuff to the grown ups. Just protect them and keep things as normal as possible. And they don't need the details. They're kids. They're
Yeah.
totally kids. I have to say, even though divorce in our society has been around for quite some time, it really has taken a long time to shake these social stigmas that are surrounding them. And, part of my mission is really about changing the narrative of that. We're all thrown challenges in life, whether it is losing a job, losing a loved one, illness, and sometimes divorce. Like nobody comes out of this unscathed. And how you handle that really, I think, is revealing, and it's ultimately your choice. And with regard to a lot of the shame that still, I think, surrounds divorce, societal and sometimes self inflicted, you can even think outwardly like, this is fine, but you can still be processing these really big feelings inside. What tips can you share that can help somebody grappling with those feelings of shame during or after divorce?
Right. I find that people who get really debilitated by shame have shame that have played out in other parts of their life, and it's nothing new.
Yeah.
So if you find you are one of those people who's just, like I said, just debilitated by shame and just can't let yourself off the hook for anything, can't even see any different perspective, then that's an opportunity to look at how shame has played out in your life. What's your relationship with shame? How did you
Mm-hmm.
see shame modeled? Were you blamed? Were you criticized? Why is the weight of the world on your shoulders? And it was most likely as a result of you being conditioned for it, where you're taught that you're to blame. You're taught that you're scarring the family name for something else, and you're used to being that kind of scapegoat.
Mm,
And so this is a real opportunity to see how you can perceive yourself, get a sense of self in a different way. You know, one of the getting back to the regrets of divorce is not grieving or not taking an
mm.
introspective time. A lot of times people just shoot into the next relationship
Yeah,
and you just recreate the same pattern
yeah.
because you haven't processed how did I attract this? What was it about this person that I was attracted to? Because you were attracted to them.
Hmm.
Many people usually see a lot of signs going into it, and there is some sort of a draw there. What is it about this dynamic? Maybe it's an unhealthy dynamic that keeps you coming back to the well.
Yeah, ultimately, it's really about going in and tapping into what are the deeper things underneath this that you're grappling with, as opposed to the more superficial interactions with somebody else. Where did this come from? I think is a really great, focus. And, divorce is really an opportunity for you to kind of re-get to know who you are at this point in your life. And figure out what you want your life to look like after divorce and really invest that energy into yourself. And I love the idea of, if you are feeling those big feelings of responsibility, of shame, being able to kind of expand on that so that you work through it and not carry it into, or continue to do the work as you build something new and hopefully wonderful for yourself, because you have that opportunity. I'm going to just jump in and answer a couple of our
Sure.
followers' questions really quickly, because they've been coming fast and furious. Danny asked, just got out of a verbally abusive relationship.
Mm,
What advice would you give for someone who's been a victim of this for 3 years? That's a long time. Thank you for dropping the question.
yeah. Really great question. And I applaud you for getting out of an abusive relationship. Many people, when you get back to that concept of trauma bonds, can't make that break because you
Yeah.
wait for those few and brief moments where you're treated well by the abuser, and then it's just enough to carry you on, or you're going to be their savior, or you're going to do this or that. So I really applaud you for being able to get out. That's amazing just in and of itself. And you can use that time to really be introspective of how this got
Mhm.
seated, how this was a very logical step for you to choose this partner, where when you're conditioned in childhood to be the peacemaker, to be the comedian, to cheer people up, to take the blame, whatever your role is, that this is where people pleasing is born out of. And to use this time to really tune into what do you want out of life? It's a question that many people cannot answer.
Mhm.
When I ask them, what do you need from your partner right now? What could they say or do? They don't know. What do you
Yeah.
like to do? What's your sense of self? What are your values? I don't know, because you're always just reacting to other people and their values and their desires. And so, you get to choose what you want and what you desire, and then expressing them and practicing it and embracing it. It's a very liberating process.
Oh, Danny, what a great question and what a great answer, Kim. Thank you. And just as you're going through that, Danny, something that I do talk about a lot is being able to kind of building on what Kim said, is take this time to figure out, wait, what are my priorities? What are things that bring me joy? What are my goals? Like and being able to have that introspection. And you don't have to answer those questions immediately. Take your time. I always advocate during a separation or divorce, make sure you're making time for self-care. And that doesn't mean going to the spa. That literally means something that's going to feed you. Go out and take a walk outside, journal, whether meditation is something for you or not, incorporating more of what brings you joy, and it kind of opens you up, and it's a great way to recharge and then build more of what you want in your life by actively doing it.
And
I'm just going to,
I would
yeah, go
like to
ahead.
add one more thing, is find a support group.
Oh, yeah.
Research has shown of the effectiveness of support groups, or at least just one mentor,
Yeah.
a friend, just someone, because you're going to have a lot of programming, Danny, in your
Mm-hmm.
mind of what's truth, supposed truth about who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you're this or that. And you're going to now be reconditioning yourself from all this programming. You need another voice in your ear, a voice where when you socialize your problems and you're vulnerable with others and you're trying to get like a new perspective from this voice over here, that those voices, whether it's through the support group or the best friend, they
Mm.
will start to take an authoritative place in your mind to start to push out whatever the verbal abuser was seeding in your mind. So support groups, hugely important.
Uh, Amazing. Yes, absolutely. And Kim, I know you have support groups. So Danny, please check hers out. This is what you get. I mean, she's kind of amazing. And also surrounding yourself with other people who have been where you are takes off that feeling of real isolation. And that's, and that's part of it. That's part of keeping you stuck where you are, is not opening
Yes.
yourself up and being able to connect with others. So to that, the real hair talk, love it, dropped in. It's been said that your marriages, after your first divorce, you're more likely then to get divorced again. What are some of the biggest things people can do to prevent a second divorce? That's a good question.
Yeah. Understand your deepest
Mm,
trigger, because when you go into as an adult, when you go into relationships, many times, most of us, myself included, are unprocessed when we go into
yeah.
adulthood. And you'll end up perpetuating a dynamic from the past. So it could be a really controlling mother, and then you become a
Hmm.
people pleaser. It could be a really avoidant father, and so now you are attracted to now people who shut down on you or just like dismiss you or whatever the case may be. So just understand what your deepest pattern is and what you're seeking and resolving from childhood. Because, like I said earlier today, sure, you could break up with someone, divorce them, but then the next person you meet is you're going to be seeking to fill that cup in that way. And so without doing any sort of pattern interrupt and saying, whoa, wait a minute, I don't like this pattern. Where is this coming from? You will just keep continuing down that road. So to avoid that, understand what still needs to be processed and healed, and what you are actually seeking from a partner, what your relationship vision is, what's getting back to what you were saying earlier, Alex, about what's valuable, what's a priority to you.
Mm,
Don't give up going on to art fairs or athletics or whatever your passion is just because your partner doesn't like to.
yeah.
Integrity is being able to stick to your values.
Yeah.
So, but what are those values?
I mean, amazing. So many great things to take away from that. And I would just add on to that. Look, we're really habituated to have these very set, kind of predetermined ideas of what a relationship, what a marriage looks like, right? And I think it takes a long time to not only connect with whatever traumas you've had to be able to address them. And that doesn't mean solving it, because this stuff comes up and goes away, and comes up and goes away. It's a lifelong practice. But to be able to figure out also, what is the dynamic that works for me? Why am I also chasing this what is it important about marriage to me? And make sure that it's of your accord, and not measuring up to somebody else's idea of what it's supposed to be. We get one go round, right? It gets to be however you want it to be. So take that time. So
Yeah.
I got Anisha dropped in. True, children don't need to know everything just because they're not ready for it. Thank you. I'm so glad that that resonated with you. And then I'm just checking through to see if we have another question. In the meantime, I want to ask really quickly. So many people are surprised to find out that, like, even in the most amicable of splits, whether it's just a relationship breakup, whether it's a marriage breakup, that there's really a grieving process that goes along with it, right? I think, again, people think, if you're in a long-term marriage, usually you've been kind of dealing with it for a long time, and you think by the time you divorce, well, I should be done because I've been dealing with it. And I think a lot of people are just surprised to find that it's kind of like a death of the life you expected, and then you get thrown into this whole other kind of processing that catches you off guard. What are some ways that people can best navigate that so that they can heal?
Yeah, I love that you're bringing up situations where it's kind of amicable,
Mm,
because any sort of divorce, you're going to experience a loss, just like you
yeah.
said. Understand how grief works, where you may be rolling along and think you're fine, okay, maybe even a year later, and then it just hits you out of the blue. That's grief. That is normal, and that's fine. And it's important not to, especially if it was an unhealthy, like toxic
Hmm.
relationship, it's important not to confuse grief and missing a person
Hmm.
as I need to get back together with them, especially for people who are in trauma bonds, abusive relationships. Just understand that love isn't enough. You
Mhm.
need respect, integrity, honesty, the list goes on. So understand how grief works,
Mhm.
don't misinterpret it, and make space for it. A lot of times, rituals are nice for helping bring closure. It could be writing a letter to the person, maybe
Yeah.
that you don't send. It could be visiting the places that you used to enjoy going to, and sitting with the sadness. It's
Yeah.
okay. And processing it with friends, family members, whoever your confidants are, support group. Just keep processing it so that you can receive support and not be isolated.
Kim, I love that you said rituals, and it made me chuckle a little bit when you said, revisit places that you enjoy. I unconsciously did that and still
Oh,
continue to do that in certain places, and I call it reclaiming the space, like
oh,
actively in my
nice. I like
head.
that word.
Of just like I'll walk into an environment and I'm like, I'm reclaiming this and taking away. I mean, for me, what that means is like I'm replacing this old memory with a new experience of this
Hmm.
place, so it becomes mine again. And because you share a lot of things with that person that you really enjoy, right? And you don't, and you want to be able to kind of reclaim that and enjoy it in the future and separate it. Support Co said, I'm sad. This is so relatable. Even I knew these facts, just feeling it. Again, thank you for letting us know that this is really resonating and it's a meaningful conversation for you. Well, I have to say, Kim, look, I like to keep these short and sweet. They're about 20-25 minute conversations. Ruby did drop something in, so I'd love to be able to get to that if you have a few more minutes.
Sure. Yeah, whatever
So
you want.
great. Ruby said, how to avoid the quote 7-year itch when boundaries have been communicated and broken? Great question.
I always like to take an escalation path because let's face it, therapy is expensive. There are many steps you can take to get up to that point.
Mhm.
So don't let money be a hindrance. Many free resources, tons of YouTube videos. You can Google anything these days.
All of
Um,
your content.
um, and books on trauma. Uh, Especially, I think trauma is just such a people don't like to look at their childhood as I had a traumatic childhood. But then when they start to describe it, like, yeah, my mother threw things consistently at my father, or yeah, they were yelling, or yes, I was hit a lot, or yeah, it's just also normal and
Yeah.
casual, and they don't realize how trauma really affects you. I love books on trauma. Uh, my mind is blanking right now. It's on my website, but Healing the Living Legacy of Trauma is a great one. The Body Keeps a
Oh,
Score, another
oh
great one
yeah.
on trauma. Understanding how emotional dysregulation comes from trauma. So if you're a type who finds yourself emotionally overwhelmed, where you find yourself spinning out and your brain can't glom on to a different perspective, just understand that it's okay and that it will take a little bit of work because you were a child when this got programmed and conditioned. And so find someone who can help you through this. So when it comes to a partner who you've communicated all these things, you've set your boundaries, they're not doing anything, ultimately you are with a person who has free will choice. And if you suggest these books and videos and hey, how about couples counseling? And you just get a dead end after each of them, then you are left with a decision. Your partner is satisfied with your relationship. It's the hard truth.
Yeah.
So now, what do you do with that?
Hmm.
Relationships are complicated, financial enmeshment, children. Um, it's not an easy decision, but you need to really accept the fact that if you've tried all these
Yeah.
things and you're still like, nope, your partner's saying they're satisfied with the relationship. You may be
Hmm.
arguing every day, doesn't matter. They are satisfied and they don't want to change. And then you need to decide what to do with that information.
That is that is actually one that's like a golden nugget, everything that you just said. And it just reminds me a lot of something that I try and advocate. Look, I think that there's this idea of when you're at a crossroads in your relationship that of course you're going to invest your time and energy into trying to course correct and trying to listen and try to be heard and incorporate these really constructive tools to build. And I think at a certain point, something I also advocate for is you know what, as much as you're investing in that outcome, you need to start researching, what if it's another income? And that doesn't mean all of a sudden, I think there's this magical thinking idea, well, if I just get my ducks in a row with all my paperwork, or if I start to look at the finances and what would that look at like if I am on my own, I think there's this fear of like, well, I'm manifesting something. I think you need to put in just as much energy into figuring out the other. Why? Because I feel like when we are so focused on only one thing and the other thing is so terrifying, it then can sometimes, I've seen, kind of color the reasons why you're trying so hard to make it work, as opposed to, you want to be with somebody to be with somebody. You want to be able to communicate. It's not going to be all like, unicorns and rainbows, but you don't want to be with somebody just for the fear of being alone. And you also don't want, something I get on social media posts on YouTube are some users saying, whatever happened to saying till death do you part, this is forever. Why do you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you? Why do you want to be with somebody that you can't have really challenging conversations with and be vulnerable with? Those are questions you need to be asking yourself too.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that, everybody who's joined us today, this has been a phenomenal conversation with Kim Polinder, relationship coach. I'm going to be posting it immediately on the Instagram feed and tagging Kim. Please check out her website and all of her resources. And she, her work runs the gamut. It's not just about separation and divorce. So I highly encourage you to check it out. And please check out all the resources that I have available for you if you're considering a divorce, if you're going through a separation. I've got a great blog packed with useful tips and tools and people like Kim. So Kim, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate your time and expertise, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Oh, thank you. I always enjoy coming on your IG lives, and I love talking to you. You have so much to offer yourself as a counselor of words of wisdom.
Coach.
So yeah, of course. So
Oh,
yeah, I
thank
really enjoy your content as well.
you so much. That really means the world to
Yeah.
me. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.